I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. We are honored to have Mayor Lou Ogden with us today to present the annual city address. Lou has held the position of mayor for 13 years, and during that time has been an outstanding advocate not only for the city of Tualatin, but the businesses and citizens that form our community. During his service, he has participated in a wide variety of committees and task force locally, regionally, and nationally. One only needs to look around the community to see the imprint that Mayor Ogden has left during his tenure. From the skate park to Bridgeport Village, has been a constant and passionate advocate for Tualatin and its citizens. Today, he will be giving us an update on the accomplishments of the city over the past year and a peek at the priorities for the coming year. Please help me welcome Mayor Lou Ogden.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. Those comments were kind. I'm actually the one that's honored to be here in a couple capacities. I've had the pleasure to serve on the board here at the Chamber for many years. And so actually, though, since I'm here on official business, to avoid any ethics complaints, I won't tell you about my insurance business. But I've been pleased to participate with this group for a long time. My hobby is being mayor of Tualatin, and it keeps me out of trouble, at least keeps me out of the bars. But I will tell you that it's a great thrill, it's a great honor to represent the city in various functions, but it's a lot of fun to be able to participate in such a wonderful community. I don't know that I could take credit for Bridgeport Village being here, but I'll take it while it's here. I will tell you, though, you made comment about having a good turnout today. My good friend Tom Bryan, the Washington County Chair, delivered his State of the County a couple weeks ago, and it was at a regular monthly event, by far the largest they've ever had. And obviously the great attraction what's going on in Washington County. I won't presume that that's why you're here today, but I will take credit for bringing probably 25% of the folks here as city employees today. So if that helps the numbers, we'll take credit. However, anyone who works for the city shan't follow the lead of heckling set by the Bridgeport employees over here. So, but with that, I'm going to try to move through in a timely manner. I could use some help with time management, well, with my life, but today, so if we need to move along quicker or a little slower, whatever, let me know. I want to just go through some real quick highlights of 2007, and you can read, but in no particular order: Tualatin Tomorrow vision statement, that whole process, the opening of Nyberg Woods. We actually got to cut a ribbon this year at the Keokuk Bridge, though it was built the previous year. We had a groundbreaking for the new library expansion, which is a fantastic event here in Tualatin for a number of reasons, mostly through the graciousness of the voters who approved the bonds and the operating levy to run it. We had a 25th anniversary, a quarter of a century recognition of the Tualatin-Durham Senior Center. We built a water reservoir. Now that's exciting, 5 million gallon water reservoir, and we did some improvements on the right-of-way landscaping of Boones Ferry Road. So, oh, and by the way, we, at the end of last year, as a council, concluded we would undertake a study for the potential of a recreation center in Tualatin, and the Tualatin Timberwolves went to state. So, why did I pick those? Are those exactly the highlights, the most important things? Maybe, maybe not, but they're exemplary of a number of things. You know, Tualatin Tomorrow Vision is probably the most fantastic public involvement process that we've done in this community. And not just involving people, but in engaging people and having people excited to participate on an ongoing basis. I'll talk more about that. Nyberg Woods is just another example of the great commercial attraction to Tualatin, and then obviously making that a great place for our folks that live here to shop and have fun. And Keokuk's, the bridge, the Ped Bridge, is a great example of teamwork between various levels of government to fund a fairly expensive project and just connect Tualatin and Tigard and Durham and that whole area and the whole Tualatin, or a good share of the Tualatin River Greenway. Library construction, as I said, was a gift of the voters to themselves. Our job as elected officials is really not to decide what's in everyone's best interest, but to try to perceive what people believe is in their best interest and to facilitate making that happen for them. Again, the Senior Center, we do a lot for youth in this community, but remember the Senior Center 25 years ago, a federal grant to build the building, and I'll talk more about that later. Water reservoir only because it demonstrates that from a fiscal and from an infrastructure accountability standpoint, where we are well financed and we are doing our best within our capabilities to provide the infrastructure for the growth in this community. You know, Boones Ferry right-of-way. So what's so great about throwing down some bark dust and planting some trees? And yet, as I show you some slides, again, that is a recognition by the City Council that aesthetics, that pride in our community, that it's a pretty place to be, is important to folks who live here. The rec center proposal is sort of an epiphany to me. We'll see what happens. I'll talk more about that. And what did the city have to do with the T-Wolves going to state? Well, nothing, but if I can take credit for it, why not? But I will digress just for a moment and really offer heartfelt congratulations to Coach Hastings, Coach of the Year, taking unranked team at the outset and going to the state finals, and not only leading a bunch of great kids to a tremendous outcome, but focusing for the entire tenure of his great career in Tigard and Tualatin and Southern Oregon and so on, and getting kids to get good grades, to graduate, and be proud of themselves. And so that's a great tribute to our community to have someone like, you bet, to have someone like Coach Hastings and the whole crew, the school board and Jeff Smith's operation at the high school, elementary. I could go on, but I won't. So state of the city. I think the state of the city is pretty darn good. So how can I justify that? Let's give you some numbers and show you a few things. First of all, this year we're 95 years old. You might recognize that picture on your way out. Thanks to the Tualatin Country Club for hosting us here. You know that Tualatin has had some population growth over the years, and you can read the numbers. But even though we're 95 years old, in many ways we're only 35 or approaching 40 years old from the standpoint of growth and the development of this community. So we're really a fairly new community in many regards. You can see the compounded growth rate of population. It won't continue at that rate, probably just because of the constraint of land and sustainability. But, you know, if your 401k did 9.4% for the last 37 years, you'd probably be pretty happy. You know, the economy isn't today what it was a year ago, what it was 2 years ago, and yet property valuations in Tualatin have gone up. Our overall assessed value went up over 6%. Market value is over $4 billion. Assessed value, of course, is about 2/3 of that, 3/4 of that. You see the breakdown: residential, commercial, and industrial. And if you look at the pie chart, the light blue one simply says about half of our AV is residential, and about the other half is everything else, predominantly commercial and industrial, which provides for first of all, a vibrant and viable community, number one. But number two, it provides for some financial stability for not only the government, but for the businesses that need to thrive, and for the residents to have neighborhoods that are viable, et cetera. A little bit of the breakdown of that. Again, you can see the acreage. Of the 5,000 acres, about half of them are residential. And then the non-residential acreage breaks into a different measurement. You know, 10 million square feet of industrial, 1 million square feet of office, 3 million square feet of retail. All those numbers, by the way, are up, depending on which number you look at, anywhere from 5 to 10% over the last year. And there's a little bit of land left to develop. Soon to probably be a lot more land to develop if we can figure out how to fund the infrastructure for South Tualatin, which is roughly 1,000 acres. That value increase that I talked about, some of it's from new built, $67 million of new construction this year. And again, 48 single-family homes is not a huge number, but based on the acres that are available in the housing market and where it's gone this year, it shows that, at least in Tualatin, our economy is still fairly strong. You see the commercial and industrial buildings that were opened, or I guess those were probably permits for the year. But, so I don't remember what those numbers were altogether, a couple hundred total, and yet we had 16,000 total permits. So that shows redevelopment and remodels and things of that nature, 12,000 inspections, and a total project value of over $100 million in the last year. So what does some of that development look like? Well, you recognize it. It's up near Bob's area. This happens to be, I believe, the Point at Bridgeport, but and we have a slight advancing issue. There we go. Nyberg Woods. The kind of development is development that people like to see, that enhances the community and, in fact, brings people to Tualatin as well. That is the Providence building, and I believe that when that's completed, it will be the largest non-hospital in terms of square feet in the Providence system, at least to date. Redevelopment, that's the Seneca building, looks substantially different than it did. And again, a tribute to the fact that Tualatin is viable, not just on the fringes or in the new areas, but throughout the community. This is on the west end. You can see something as simple as a storage area, or something a little more upscale in an industrial area, such as the Arlington Commons. The Koch property, which was if not the largest, one of the largest land masses still left in Tualatin. Was recently sold, and so obviously industrial development there. And then even on the east side, the Meridian Business Park. Clear on the west side, that is the Berkshire organization that's building, I don't remember the name of the building, but substantially different for Tualatin, 4-story, fairly large, again out on 99W. An example of an area that was an industrial zoned area that, because of its size and location and the economy, made more sense to maybe for that to be commercial, so we reacted to that a few years ago. Another example, Schneider Trucking, so that has been sold or is in the process of being redeveloped. This is not a plan that's been submitted by anyone. This is typical of what might end up going there, the interest that might be there from the present developer. And that's probably too small to read, but that's, I think, 5 or 6 buildings. Some of them are 4 stories high. It's all upper end residential, apparently apartments, and structured parking. Just, you know, a real gem of a concept to be located right next to Bridgeport Village and the Point and Providence and the development that's going on in that area. So again, a little bit of a foretaste of things to come when you look at the quality of development that's going into an area that might appear to be blighted like the old Schneider trucking area. So what's it take to support that kind of development? Well, so again, by the numbers, we've got pushing 80 miles of city streets, 9 miles of county roads, and 5 miles of state roads. I think that 5 miles is referred to as a freeway. We have had a commitment to a Parks Master Plan, to a Greenways Master Plan, a Natural Area Master Plan to maintain, again, the quality of life that people enjoy, not just living here, but when they come here to do business or they come here to recreate at Bridgeport Village or other ways. So again, we pride ourselves in our parks. I could talk a lot about our staff, and I'll talk a little bit in a minute, but you know, one person I always like to single out, Paul Hennon, because we talk about parks, I just talk about the Hennon Standard, and if you do that, that's sort of the gold standard of the Bridgeport Village Standard in lifestyle centers. So what does all that mean in terms of money? Well, we have, if not the lowest, one of the lowest permanent tax rates in our region, and we at $2.26 per thousand. We have some outstanding bonds, and you can see how we stack up to the neighboring cities now. To be fair, the Beaverton number, I believe, includes their police or their fire. But call your attention to that blue number again, the $2.26. That's the tax rate. That's the taxes, the property taxes that you pay if you own property in Tualatin. This is our estimated revenue for the fiscal year 07-08. If you jump right down to the bottom, it's $100 million in round numbers. If you look at the blue number, it's $5.6 million. So the total revenue coming into the city, that blue number is your property tax. And I'm not trying to say that taxes aren't an issue. Taxes are an issue. But the revenue, it's about 5% of our total revenue. In fact, it's about enough just to run the police department. We don't spend it quite that way. There are other revenue sources, but to put it in perspective, a lot of those funds, those larger numbers, are dedicated funds or development funds. When someone builds in this community, they pay fees to the water and to the sewer system. They pay fees to the park system. They pay fees to the road system. And Bob can attest to that. And in some cases, they pay more than just fees. We call those conditions of development to make improvements or add streets or even in some cases add capacity. So I'll come to a point in a moment. Of that $100 million, we are programmed to spend about 3/4 of it this year. Is that because we're very frugal, we're saving for a rainy day? Not really, it's a timing issue with capital projects. Bring your attention to urban renewal though. A very large number in terms of both revenue, and then in this case we're paying off bonds, but over the period of many years, a substantial investment in our community done through tax increment financing. I want to talk more about that, not in the details, but in the purpose and the value of doing that. So from an accountability standpoint, I will tell you that our finance department is consecutively exemplary in their way of doing business, which you can accept nothing, not even a shade less than that, of course, obviously, because those are the public's dollars. So how do people feel about living here, given those numbers? This is a recent survey. I won't expect you to be able to read it, but this was done actually 30 days ago or less. And well, maybe you can't read it. Of the things, when you ask folks, what do you like about living in Tualatin, the types of things that people respond to are, first and foremost, the good neighborhood, the small